Welcome to the Dug in a Pub podcast, where I share thoughts, stories, and conversations about my life and my journey post-suicide attempt.
I'd like to begin with a fact.
So pull up a stool and let's see if we can change the world.
I'd like to begin with a fact.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Dug in a Pub podcast. This episode's going to be a little different. Today I talked to Jason Rogers from Fez-O-Rama. For those of you who know me or have seen pictures, you see I wear a lot of Fezzes. And this is the guy that started Fez-O-Rama, and he makes the Fezzes. A lot of them he sews himself by hand. So it's a conversation with how he got into making Fezzes, how the business runs a little bit, and just about the whole Fez culture. So sit back, take a listen, and thanks. So, Jason, how did you get into making Fezzes?
Basically, I have, as a kid, I loved hats and I collected hats, and that led me into costume design. And in college, I studied costume design, partially because I really wanted to learn how to make hats and learn millinery techniques. So I went to Cal State Long Beach. I studied some costume there, and I did make hats when I was in college at Cal State Long Beach. But I did a lot of blocked hats, like the felt blocked hats and buckram hats. So the firm, the solid ones. And that led me to fashion design. And I was studying fashion design when I was working on a project and kind of came up with an idea for doing a soft fez. I didn't want to do fezzes out of felt, but I didn't want them to be like a hard constructed hat, like a top hat. And
Right.
Fast forward again, in college, I had come up with the idea. This would have been really early 90s, like 92 around, sitting at lunch with my friend Eric. We brainstorm. We just come up with random ideas and brainstorm on stuff. And that's when I originally came up with the idea for Fez-O-Rama, this idea of having a little boutique that just sold random fezzes.
Wow, that's a while ago.
Yeah, so that was in a sketchbook, and I still have that sketchbook somewhere, and I tucked it away. After I graduated from fashion design, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that would have been 98, reverse that. And after I had finished up my radiation treatments, about 6 months later, so I was still recovering from cancer treatments. We're getting into the holidays, and I wanted to make my friends Christmas presents, and I decided to make them all fezzes. Using this idea that I had many years prior to that. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, Maya, she bought me fabric, and she had, while I was going through cancer treatments, had collected money to get me software for my sewing machine that could handle embroidery. So she raised money to get me software so I could design my own embroideries. And
Nice.
I made the first batch of fezzes, about 8 of them for my friends. And we would get dressed up and go out for like a birthday party or go bowling. We would wear our fezzes. And we would
Excellent.
either get accused of being a band. Hey, are you guys playing tonight? Or where did you get the hats? Do you sell them? And for a long time, I just made them for friends. So if some friend's birthday came up, they would get a box, a nondescript box, and it was basically what we referred to as the instant acolyte kit. That it's the religion that finds you. You were jumped into our little cult. So about 25 of them went out, I think, maybe a little bit more than that, just as gifts to friends. And that group kind of spiraled with the internet. We were leaving a bowling alley one night, and someone said, "Are you playing tonight?" And one of my friends said, "No, but check out our website." We didn't have a website when he said that, and he gave him a URL.
Whoops.
So we went home, and I created a website for it, and we managed to gain more friends that way, like friends of friends, and met people online, and they kind of joined the club. So that ran on as just an inside joke, a running gag for years, until 2003, we went to a tiki event in Palm Springs. Around this time, I was teaching fashion design full time, and I was looking for little weekend getaways, like just to do something on a weekend, just, leave town. It didn't have to be far, but just, go to a hotel and do some random things. And I stumbled across this event called Tiki Oasis in Palm Springs, and then I recognized some of the artists that were involved with it. So I thought, oh, this would be fun. 3 of us, myself, Maya, and my friend who spouted off the URL, Troy, went to the event. It was really cool. Bands are playing. A bunch of artists were there. Had a good time and thought this would be fantastic. I'd love to show art here. So the next year, 2004, a group of us got together and we had a booth with just artwork. I embroidered some shirts. We had some paintings. And we were wearing the Fezzes I had made. And more people were interested in the Fezzes than in the other stuff I had made. So,
nice.
It was like, hey, check out this painting. And they're like, are you selling the hats? I embroidered a nice shirt. Are you selling the hats? So the next year I made, I think 3 dozen of Fezzes, brought them, sold out, and thought we should, I'll clearly have to make more next time. So my thought was, I'll make a bunch for this event, and then we'll put together a website, and that way we can sell whatever doesn't sell at the event, we can put online and just get rid of it so that every year at this event, I could have a new batch of designs, and I wouldn't be stuck with a bunch of Fezzes. Not thinking about the scale of the internet or how the World Wide Web works.
Whoops.
Yeah, very quickly I was, oh God, I need to make more Fezzes because there's nothing, my website needs Fezzes. So it started as a inside joke, it became a running gag, and turned into a hobby that turned into a business that sort of took over my life. I went from teaching 5 days a week and sewing all weekend to teaching 4 days a week and sewing 3 days, teaching 3 days a week and sewing 4 days. Got it down to teaching 2 days a week and sewing Fezzes 5 days a week for a number of years until I finally realized I was burned out as a teacher and I was making Fezzes full time as a job, and I had inverted my reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've been doing. I've been doing. I think I'm on my 5th year now. Fezzes full time.
Oh, it's amazing. I know we chatted that one time online. Just the whole tiki culture is something that I literally, I've seen tiki bars and I knew that was out there, but until I started wearing Fezzes and looking more into your designs, I'm like, there's a whole subculture out there that I have no idea about. Because for me, I think I told you, I was on Facebook and the Cthulhu Fez, the tall, scrolled by, and it went up, and I scrolled back down. I'm like, I turned and I look at my wife. I said, I don't own any Fezzes. And she's like, really? I said, yeah. I said, and then I think I'd ordered it like 2 minutes later. So, and that started the downward spiral for me.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
Yeah,
they're like tattoos. You just sort of start with one, and then it spirals out of control quickly. Yeah,
because I just got my 16th Fez. So, and then I made that nice spiral Fez rack that I still have to get the motor on it to make it spin. Because I figure I could get a Christmas tree stand and put that on there. But yeah, when I wear Fezzes, it's a lot of fun. I'm always asked if I'm a Shriner. I love showing them off. I make sure people touch them and feel them. Because honestly, they're some of the highest quality clothing I own. I mean, I look at the kilts I own, and I buy the cheap knockoff Pakistani kilts, which most kilt wearers get mad at me for. But yeah, the Fezzes, the quality in those is just outstanding.
Oh, thanks.
And they're just fun.
Yeah. When I was in design school, I kind of had this ridiculous idea that I'm not sure would have been successful had I chased it down. But I had this idea, growing up in the glory days of the punk culture and the alternative dress culture of the 80s. I remember, that the clothing wasn't made very well. It was usually, it was stapled together, safety pins, things like that. And I kind of had this idea that I really would like to do punk clothing, but at a really high quality, like, tailor-made punk clothing. And again, I don't know how realistic that would be as an item.
Yeah.
But I just thought, that was kind of where my mindset was. So when it came to making the Fezzes, I do care about the quality. Like, it still represents me as a, fashion design major,
And
kind of
and it
thing.
shows. I mean, everybody I've showed them to, and I've had people who do embroidery look at them. Like when I took the jacket to get the patches on it locally here, she was remarking at the quality of the embroidery. And yeah, everybody who's ever grabbed one of those Fezzes and felt it, they're like, yeah, these things are definitely high quality, definitely not your run-of-the-mill. It's not a novelty item.
Right.
And I think that surprises people when I show them to them. They're expecting the felt Fez. You buy it like, the joke shop.
Yeah, I think as a culture, we've gotten so used to that level of, you buy a dozen and hopefully 10 of them are good. Kind of idea that I buy my socks in a sack of 25.
Yep.
So I studied tailoring and I tried to apply some of those techniques to the hats, and I kind of felt like that would be my market. That would be the thing that would designate what I do. And a lot of I do get it a lot where people are like, wow, why are they so expensive? Because they're coming at it thinking
they're that good.
just assuming that they're going to be, poorly made. And I get that. And I think if you were to show, for the most part, if you show what I do to somebody who does it, they would either shy away going, wow, there's a lot of effort going into that. And that was always kind of my intention, was to try to push my, like the embroidery designs. I try to push the limits on what I can do with embroidery.
Right.
The number of colors or the amount of detail in it. It's almost a way to defend my fictional market by making it difficult, so that if you were to try to knock off what I'm doing, it would take actual effort.
Yeah, I mean, your Fezzes aren't for the casual Fez wearer. They're a serious piece of clothing.
Thanks.
Yeah, I remember the first one I got, I'm like, wow, what was it? I think 65 for the tall, and then I got the 4 vents,
Right.
and because if you're going to go in, you go all in. And
Well, that
so
does.
I got it and I opened it up, and I was like, holy cow, this is a serious piece of clothing here, and the fact that I can roll it up and put it in my pocket and not have to worry about it. And sometimes I even shove it in my sporran, depending on what else I have in there. But yeah, that to have something that's that quality, that durable, yeah, it's really nice to see in today's market. Normally you get something and it's cheap, and like I have some Vans, some checked Vans. I think I wore them like 5 or 6 times and they were starting to fall apart. And these are Vans, you'd think they would be a quality item, but no. But
Yeah, it's tricky because the manufacturing kind of leads the market for a lot of these companies. So as they go from factory to factory, quality control is terrifying, which is why we make everything ourselves.
Yeah, and it really shows. Like I said, the quality is just amazing. That's why I show them off. Here, look, feel this Fez. No, feel this velvet. It's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, the design challenge for the Fezzes for me was it needed to survive my friends, and I knew I could have made them top hats. I could have done a hand buckram top hat for them, and I considered it. But then the first image that went into my head was, and then my friend would put it in the back seat of his car, and then he would get his big binder, his like 20-pound binder of albums, of CDs, put a CD in his car player, and then throw the binder into the back seat and crush the hat.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, it needs to be able to be folded up and shoved in a cargo pocket.
Yep.
And still look good when they, get to the restaurant or wherever they're going.
So when you went to school, so you went for fashion design?
Yeah.
To college?
What
what were you aiming at? I mean, I don't think you were aiming at,
Fezzes? No.
being a Fezmonger.
No, that was a very round the way method of realizing a childhood dream. No, I studied costume design in, like I said, at Cal State Long Beach. And the one frustrating thing I had was I realized that being a costume designer, you are at the whims of who you're designing for. So,
Right.
I wanted to do, I did do some really cool costume stuff in the program. I did some armor for one show, but another show that I was assistant costume designer for was a play about Ty Cobb, and the baseball uniforms were borrowed from the school that had done this play previously. And really all I did was pull suits out of the closet, out of storage.
Yeah.
And the lead, the designer would say, go get me belts. And I would just go into storage and pull out handfuls of belts. And she'd go, that one and that one. And then I'd go put the other belts back. And I kind of realized.
Not a lot of design there.
Yeah, I realized that, what my passion is how clothing is made, not necessarily costuming actors.
Right.
And I performed at the same time. I was kind of interested in both sides of the scene, but I realized that what I really wanted to learn was how the clothing would have been made, as opposed to how to make it look good from 30 feet under stage lights. So, less Velcro and hot glue and more like what was tailoring? How was it made? So my learning about costume history and costuming at Cal State Long Beach led me to start thinking about maybe I should study fashion design and learn how modern clothing is made, and then help me bridge that gap. So I went to FIDM, Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, in California, and just kind of went in because they did have a costume degree, but your first AA is just general fashion design, and then you can specialize in costumes. So I kind of figured out I still have that option. I can go back into, costume from there, but I'll have a lot better foundation of pattern making and design. Right. And I did the fashion design program, then applied to get into the third year, which is the advanced program. And they only take like a dozen or so people into the third year program. And I talked with the costume department about their third year costume, and I talked to the fashion design department about their third year fashion design, and realized that because the school is a fashion design school, it's not producing theater. So your costume degree, your third year costume is almost like they create a hypothetical theater program, like a hypothetical show. And with my costume background, I realized that most of my experience there would be redundant, stuff that I'd already experienced studying costume. Yeah. Whereas the fashion design program, you were focused on creating a collection and doing a fashion show and that thing. So I kind of moved, realized that I'd have a much bigger challenge doing fashion design. And at that point, throughout my years I've always been interested in clothing and design, and have always talked about doing a fashion line. Even back in high school when I was designing my own clothing and having my mom sew it. So it was a passion. Basically what happened to me was a year after graduating from fashion design is when I was diagnosed with cancer, and I followed the money at that point. So I was doing some freelance costume work and some freelance design work, and after my cancer treatments, I needed to be, I needed money. I needed to, pay off my medical bills, pay off my student loan. So I worked in aerospace, doing pattern making in aerospace. I did illustration for a family architecture firm for my wife's father. So, I just basically whatever job I could get that was stable. When I finally felt I was recovered enough that I could get back into the fashion industry, I went up to the design school to talk to placement and see what kind of job opportunities they were, and talk with some of my old instructors. And when I met with my old instructors, they asked if I could come in and help them develop a new graphics program for the fashion design students using Illustrator and Photoshop. because back when I was a student, they were using this proprietary design program that was based on Mac Paint. It was a horribly. When I was there, I was like, we really should be doing this in Illustrator. So it just happened that I was on campus when they were addressing this, and they knew, because I did all my projects on Illustrator and Photoshop. They knew I had experience in it, and I came in and I trained instructors and I helped develop the curriculum to teach us to students, and that led me into developing curriculum in other departments. And and basically in the course of like 3 months, I was asked to then, oh great, we've worked out the curriculum, you'll start next quarter. And I was suddenly
surprise, you're a teacher.
I was a full-time instructor, caught totally off guard by it, and figured, well, I'll do this for like a year, I'll get back on my feet and then I'll be able to find a job. And like I said, I ended up teaching for 13 years.
Best laid plans.
Yeah,
right?
and the Fezzes started, making the Fezzes really was a way to, I needed a creative outlet while I was teaching, and I knew I didn't want to have to deal with trends or seasons or any of that. It just needed to be totally ridiculous, unhinged, just because I wanted to. And that was, the Fezzes were the perfect outlet for it.
Yeah, I get that. I know when I was way back in my youth, when I used to go out dancing in my late teens, I used to wear ripped jeans, and I'd go to the Limited, I'd get these really cool women's fuchsia tights, and I'd wear them under my ripped jeans. And I was almost going to start wearing kilts back then, too, because I was wearing a flannel shirt around my waist one day. Right. And I looked down and I went, this is a kilt. And then the neck got derailed by a woman I met. So, but I'm all better now. So, but, well, very interesting. Yeah, like I said, that first one that scrolled by on my Facebook feed, I was like, oh, well, there's something you don't see every day.
Yeah, that's interesting. The reality is, it's the internet made this possible. So, you know, the idea existed, the concept existed long before the internet. But back when I originally came up with the idea, I was imagining, and then I can go to the swap meet and have a little booth at the swap meet.
Yeah. And how do you obviously it's a niche product, the Fezzes. I mean, it's never going to be a mass market, but how do you advertise something that's a niche product unless you can, without the internet, it'd be almost impossible to do.
Finding an audience for it. It is pretty much the audience has found it. Like, I've not really done anything substantial in advertising. The only advertising that we've done is a friend has a retro burlesque magazine that he put out, and when he sent out a call for artists and writers to be part of this thing, and we started, we put an ad in it, and we supported the publishing of this retro girly magazine.
Cool.
Bachelor Pad magazine. And that was really the only advertising we did was in that magazine. And I don't even know how much of how much influence that has on our sales. It was more, I just wanted to support what he was doing. And, otherwise it's been word of mouth, social media, Twitter, Instagram, but I think I've done one of the, try our advertising program free on Facebook. And it was a waste of time because I didn't really know how to focus it. So, I put it in front of a whole bunch of people's eyes, but they're not potential customers. They're, that was just sort of like, oh, that's cool. And then, no sales came out of it. If I had, spent the time to kind of figure out who to send it to, that may have been more productive.
Yeah, try to figure out a market.
Yeah, I didn't. I just pretty much, said, here, send it out, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's like I sell a niche product. It's, if you look at the bottom of your mouse, it has the pads. I sell Teflon-coated tape.
Okay.
That you put on the bottom of your mouse. And I've been selling that since 2003. And there are months I make $20.
Right.
But it's such a small market that even with the internet, I've done a couple of ad campaigns through Google AdWords and things, and I've never seen an increase in sales
Yeah.
with any ads. So it's like people, if they're looking for it, they'll find it, and if not, I'm not worried about it. It's not like I'm taking it to the bank. It's normally my beer money.
Right.
But
Yeah, it's an interesting. It's one of those things where we've grown to the point where we're maxed out on our time and our space.
yeah,
Then and I see like if we're gonna move to the next level, I need somebody who has a better grasp of marketing to handle that stuff because I don't have the passion or the insight to know where would I focus this information.
yeah, and watching your state of the studio videos and things, it looks like you're pretty much running at capacity.
Yeah.
With your time and everybody's time in the shop and the shows you're doing, to try to expand the business, I think, you guys would be up against it if you suddenly got busier or suddenly some new market came in and knocked on your door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's funny because people are always trying to assume that's where, like, we're desperately trying. I mean, I am trying to move to the next level, but to do that requires us to actually move.
Yeah.
Because we live and work in our studio, and so it is we're functioning at a solid capacity right now. And yeah, I don't know if every extra Fez we make is a Fez that we have to sew ourselves. So there's that, and also the challenge of balancing your sanity, your life, in
And
your
free
work.
time's nice.
Yeah. It was funny. One of the shows we did last month, I was talking with another artist, and he just looked at me and goes, "So, what do you do for fun?" And I'm like, I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
It's like I work. We go for walks. We try to take part of Tuesday off and go see a movie. We travel and try to go to fun places for shows so that we can have we can enjoy the trips. But yeah, if somebody goes, "What do you do in your leisure time?" I can't really define my leisure time.
Yeah, I've gotten that impression. It's like, how does he, I want him to be busier, but
Yeah.
if he's busier, how does he make that transition? He's got to hire two people to work full time so he can go do the other things. And
Right. And
it's that
that's
tipping point.
where we are at. And I guess that's where we've been for a couple years, kind of functioning at capacity in that sense. And there's always stuff we can improve, and we work on improving, coming up with better designs, upgrading equipment. We've kind of beat the hell out of my first embroidery machine, and we have 4 machines here now, all at varying degrees of wear and tear. But at least that gives us some stability. So if one machine is in the shop, we're not just twiddling thumbs. And we've made investments on getting better sewing machines, but we are maxed out in kind of organizational space. So a lot of machines are tucked into corners, waiting for their day to shine.
Yeah, the joys of running your own business, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's always something, there's always something that needs to be done. So after a point, you're kind of like, yeah, that's okay. There's always something. Like, I don't have to freak out that I'm falling behind on a newsletter, or, haven't, done this concept or updated this design, because there's always going to be another thing right behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like when you were doing those sketch cards a day, I'm like, man, that's a lot of work. Doing one of those a day for a month?
It is. And that was, it's an interesting thing. By the end of the month, I'm like, oh man, why am I doing this? But because it did eat up, like that was the time that I would have dedicated to my Patreon, or I would have dedicated to designing something else. And it's almost like I need that discipline to force myself. Like that month of sketching a sketch card every day improves my sketching and that's something that I don't set aside time for. So,
Yep.
by doing that, that month made me a lot more comfortable about using my talent, about
Yeah.
instead of just spending my time going, oh, I don't draw anymore and I'm not good at drawing and I should be better at this. By doing it daily by the end, I'm seeing improvement. So it's not
Right.
just getting back up to where I was, last, 6 months ago. I surpassed, I improved from my Inktober run when I did a sketch a day in last October. So
Excellent.
yeah, it's one of those things where because I've done comic cons with the Fezzes, I know a lot of professional illustrators, and I look at their work and I'm like, God, if I spent more time, I could be better. And I should be better. So at least doing something like that forces me, even if it's not for commercial purposes. I'm not drawing a comic book. I'm not, selling T-shirts with those designs. It's helping me become more confident about what I'm doing. So that's kind of what I need to do that. And I realize that I need that discipline.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to force yourself to do those things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think it ran a little bit longer than I was thinking, but
Okay. Well, you're welcome to, edit my rambling.
that's just fine. Yeah, I have to figure out how to edit this now, so it's... Actually, I've got a guy in Scotland who's been editing my podcasts for me.
Oh, nice.
He runs a podcast, and I was asking him all these questions, and he's like, well, why don't you just send me all your individual files, and I'll edit them for you and send them back. I'm like, well, what do you want for it? He says, nothing, but you can buy me a beer.
Nice.
So he actually has a website called Buy Rob a Beer.
Oh, that's cool.
And then when he sends me edited files, I go on and I buy him a few beers. So I set up a site called Buy Duck a Beer. So, because, hosting a podcast costs me a little bit of money every month. But I just want to, again, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit, and I'll probably put a blog post. I'll follow up when I get this podcast out, I'll follow it up with a blog post, share some pictures of my Fezzes and things, and a bunch of links to your website and
Cool.
And everything. So, but because I have dozens of listeners now.
Excellent.
So, my first podcast had 88 downloads. Second episode went up this morning, and it's already at 15. I have no idea what's a good number.
Right.
I have no idea. But
it's one of those things where I've gotten onto so many great podcasts so incredibly late in the run that it's almost like you need to have 40 episodes before dwelling on how many listeners you have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm just more curious as to what happens with it. But for me, I'm doing my podcast for me, because I've had a lot of people say you need to share your story. So I'm like, okay, then I need to do this. And I hemmed and hawed for a long time. God, that first episode was a nightmare.
Oh,
I must have re-recorded it like 30 times. And the second one, I'm like, screw it. I sat down and I just did it.
That's the trick. That is the thing that I've learned. If I want something to be good, I need to commit to doing it first and then improving later.
Yep.
Otherwise, it'll never happen. I spent a good 6 months contemplating creating the Patreon page. And the same thing with like doing the videos, where it's like, but I want it to be, right. And I just had to give myself, the rule is it gets made. And then if it sucks, you just go, wow, I'm kind of embarrassed about the low quality of this. I will do better next time. Yeah,
it's like, so my stepson's making a history of the city we live in video. So he had to do a voiceover, and he was struggling with it. He was recording and then erasing and recording and erasing. So I told him, just record, and if you stumble, just pause, take a breath, and just redo the last sentence.
Yeah.
And, just kind of, he tried to give him a different view on how to do it. He was trying to make it perfect every time. And when you have, 45 minutes of speaking. It's impossible.
Yeah. And that's not how it's
So,
done.
No. And that's why, my second episode sounds so different than my first. It was much more conversational for me.
They both sounded great, so I didn't.
Well,
yeah,
thanks. Thanks.
And I listened to them back to back, and it wasn't like there was a detachment. From episode 1 to episode 2, didn't seem like it was a different show.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I know when doing them, I felt way different when I was recording them. I felt so much more relaxed doing the second one.
No, I can imagine.
Because I had the first one out, and I had a bunch of people give me good feedback. When we were just in Scotland, I had a guy sit down next to me talking to me about the podcast, and I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Well, I guess this is what I was going for, but holy crap,
No, and that's the thing is what you're sharing is really important for a lot of, specifically important for a lot of people and generally important for most people, most everyone out there.
Yeah, and that's where I'm trying to do it. It's just, we don't talk about this crap. We hide it, and we tell people to be ashamed of being depressed and about trying to do themselves in and hurting themselves, and we just gotta stop.
Yeah.
We just gotta stop doing that, so. Okay, well, I'm gonna hit the stop recording button here and see what happens. Thank you for listening to episode 4 of the Dug in a Pub podcast. Hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Jason Rogers from Fez-O-Rama. Go to Fez-O-Rama.com and you can see what he's got for sale at the moment. He does have a rotating stock and a Fez of the Week and some great designs. Well worth a purchase. Great addition to your fashion accessories. And also want to thank again, Oh My Love, for providing the music for the podcast. I think I only thanked them on the first episode, but I just want to thank them again. Next up is episode 5. I'll be talking about fear and love. And I've also got a couple of other interviews lined up with local musicians, a musician out in California, and a local brewery from Giant Jones Brewery in Madison, Wisconsin. So thanks for listening. Spread the word and love one another. Thanks. Bye.